This is a company whose success, economic success, is completely contingent upon funding from the U.S. government.
In recent years, as we have been actively engaging in war, things the government used to do is now being done by private companies.
Food, laundry, and housing were services provided within the military.
Now we're in Iraq, you still need a lot of support mechanisms, and there's just not enough military infrastructure to do that. Private contractors come in and they fill the gap.
I saw contractors in Iraq doing anywhere from helping fix tanks, helicopter mechanics, pretty much any job that's in the military, there's a civilian contractor right there.
There are over 100,000 private contractors working in Iraq, Kuwait, and the surrounding area.
This war has been privatized to a greater extent than any other war in history.
They're part of a multi-billion-dollar industry fueled by your tax dollars, an industry very much in need by the U.S. military.
40 cents out of every dollar Congress controls now goes to contractors.
There's more than 20,000 private military on the ground.
You have the second largest armed force in Iraq, or private security. They outscale the Brits or any other nation.
In the year after the Fallujah incident, they had received over $200 million in new government contracts.
People in Washington who leave government and go to work in lucrative jobs or defense industry, they have connections. They have influence.
Business boomed. They just built a brand new headquarters.
That's a big expansion. It's a rather big expansion, but it's needed. Certainly we've left room for growth. Right, 8,000 square feet in the original building, 64,000 square feet here.
The company says it can assemble hundreds of battle-ready men, a small private army at a moment's notice.
Teams of Blackwater independent contractors are deployed around the world.
Klanjamo ti se, Kriste, I blagoslivljamo te.
Companies should not be permitted to operate in a war zone and not be held accountable.
من علم الخوض ضربا بالنواقيس ناديتها يا مها.
I was reading the Bible in Greek and Hebrew and studying those languages, and Hebrew sort of led naturally into Arabic. I was also interested in student loan repayment. I owed, upwards of $40,000 in student loans, which the Army promised to repay. The option available to me was to get a secret clearance and become an interrogator. And I agreed. This was pre-9/11. I didn't really expect I'd have to interrogate someone, or imagined if I did, it would have been in a conventional war where things would have been very different.
I received a telephone call from a Mr. Saleh. He said, can you help me? He said, the Americans took my money and they hurt me very bad. And I just came from Abu Ghraib. He told me of one incident where, he was stripped nude and they tied a rope to his penis with 7 or 8 other men. And then they would, these were American personnel, he's telling me, and they would push one man and all of them would fall, and they'd be joking and laughing and mocking him. I would ask him, who was doing this to you, Mr. Saleh? And he would say, well, there were 2 types of people. One was dressed some type of military personnel wearing the army. And then the other type would be in civilian clothing. I go, what do you mean civilian clothing? He goes, like normal pants, like any normal pants and a normal shirt. So that's the first time when it struck me that there's another element being involved here in Abu Ghraib, another type of person there.
كان يوم أحد. يوم الاثنين كانت حالة من الفوضى ومن الإجراءات الأمنية الشديدة. يوم الثلاثاء اللي هو يوم اعتقالي ذهبت إلى عملي، مو عملي أنا يعني كنا في موقع عمل في منطقة الحصوة، فأني أعمل في مجال الكهرباء. تم نقلي إلى سجن أبو غريب في بداية عام 2004 باليوم الأول من الشهر الأول لعام 2004. كان أكو شخص مدني واقف بيتأمر يعني ياخذون أوامرهم من عنده اللي هم الشركات الأمنية. أدخلوني إلى الزنزانة، كبلوني وتم خلع ملابسي بالقوة. يعني أسلوب من أساليبهم أنه العضو التناسلي للرجل يلفون عليه حبل ويجروه هيك مثل عملية الخنق. شنو الغاية من عندها؟ شنو هاي الأبرة تضربون إياها اللي أنا هسه حاليا حتى أطفال مدى يصيرون أدي؟ شنو الداعي لأنه جيش يستعين بشركات أمنية مدنية للتحقيق مع معتقلين؟ بس أنا أقول شركتين مؤكدة، شركة تايتن وشركة C.A.C.I.
When I saw the photographs for the first time, and I said to the commander of the Criminal Investigation Division who was showing them to me, I said, why are the translators around the prisoners? Why are the translators in the cell block? And he said, ma'am, those aren't translators, those are C.A.C.I interrogators.
C.A.C.I was hired by the Department of Interior out of a little town in Arizona called Sierra. They were hired to do database work. And that contract, which was sort of a blanket contract that allowed them to do a whole bunch of different things, was used to do interrogation in Abu Ghraib. So what ostensibly was a contract to do clerical work or IT work turned out to be getting information not from a computer but from human beings in a notorious prison in Iraq. At the time of the scandals in the spring of 2004, roughly 50% of the interrogators were private contractors.
This amendment, Madam President, attempts to address what I believe is a very legitimate and serious concern that have come to light in recent days with respect to the use of or misuse of contractors in the treatment of detainees in Iraq. Quite simply, Madam President, this amendment would prohibit the use of contractors in interrogations of prisoners and in offensive military operations.
It just seems to me abundantly clear that we cannot hire private contractors to perform a function as inherently governmental, inherently sensitive, indeed inherently explosive, and for which there must be accountability, as is the interrogation of prisoners.
Corporations exist to make a profit, and when they're hired to do jobs, whether it's the provision of water or the interrogation of prisoners, their job is to get as much work as possible, make as much profit as possible. Now that doesn't work in the field of intelligence, period.
You do not put personnel who do not have allegiance and 100% loyalty to America, you do not put them in sensitive key government activities like military intelligence gathering.
It creates a conflict too because we were uncertain, we knew what our chain of command was. That was very clear and we were forced to memorize it and follow it. But what's the C.A.C.I chain of command?
بفضل هاي الشركات السجون أصبحت معسكرات للتدريب على العنف. وفوجئت بالاعتقال وبالفعل بعد يومين نقلت إلى سجن أبو غريب ورفع الكيس من رأسي ووجدت نفسي أمام مجموعة عسكر مجندين يعني من دول المحققين عرفنا فيما بعد مجموعة حوالي 8 أو 10 وولون علي يضعون البندقية بأماكن حساسة بالجسم وبالإضافة إلى الضرب وكنت أسمع به استغاثات استغاثات ناس تستغيث من تعذيب أو من ضرب ونباح كلاب.
There was a wink and a nod approach. We have these rules, you're going to follow them, but we're not going to spend that much time making sure that you're going to follow them. And if I don't know about what's going on, then I can, have plausible deniability.
The contractor is safely in an office in the United States somewhere. So no direct supervision. And to just simply say, well, I guess they got out of control. I don't know where they were taking their instructions from. It seems to excuse all of them. The contracting business in Iraq is very, very lucrative.
There was so much money being given away over there to contractors. I mean, there were jobs that didn't even need to be there. We'd go into the tent to use our internet, and the woman who would put my name down to assign me to a computer would be a civilian contractor who was making 6 figures to be over there. Why is she there? Why are we paying this woman to do this?
جو علينا الأمريكان بال11:30 بالليل وأخذوني أنا وابني. فابني دا يقول لهم هذه أمي. فإجا الأمريكي جرني من إيدي حق قال لي جو هيك حال صح. فقال لي اعترفي، إذا متى اعترفين على الإرهابيين اللي وياك أحوديك بمكان يعتدون عليك ويلعبون بيش طوب الأمريكان. فأحسن لك أحكي أنت وابنك.
I was getting really angry. I mean, especially because I knew that a lot of these prisoners that I saw with these injuries from abuse and torture really hadn't done anything. They weren't part of the insurgency. They were just picked up for no reason at all.
We were interrogating taxi drivers and like pizza delivery guys. It was just, we called him Average Ahmed.
Titan has long-standing contracts providing critical information technology and support services for some of our nation's most valuable defense assets. Under a contract with the U.S. Army's Intelligence and Security Command, Titan has over 4,000 linguists that provide invaluable mission-critical services.
Titan is the company that provides the linguists and continues to provide the linguists throughout Iraq. They're the biggest provider in this business.
They were so desperate to get people to fill these positions as translators that they were just hiring anybody that approached somebody and obviously had command of the English language in addition to the Arabic language or Farsi or whatever it may have been.
There was people who maybe spoke the language, but it was broken, but could not read it or write it. And I'm talking about English here. And they were hired. They were never given a test. Nobody was given a test. I was never given a test. The test I was given was a phone conversation for a minute. Military trusted us. Military trusted Titan. Titan came and said, here's a linguist that we have hired, we have trained, tested, we put our trust in, he passed his security clearance, or he got some kind of a clearance. You should trust him in everything he does, everything he say.
I did work closely with Titan all year long while I was in Iraq. And I can say that a lot of the translators weren't trained at all. I don't know what kind of training they received, but they were terrible at it.
There was no managers, there was no supervision, there was no training, there was no follow-up. There was whatsoever a system of evaluation of what linguists are doing or what they're doing, even a system of if these linguists really translating or doing, or really are they translating or giving their opinions. Titan made the big bucks and hired the most incompetent people most of the time, did not follow up with them, did not really know what they were doing. Probably as a result, a lot of people got hurt, a lot of people got killed, American lives got lost. because someone wants to make money and wants to have a fat check in his pocket.
Here you have the MPs who engaged and participated in horrific conduct are being held accountable for their actions. Why aren't the U.S. contractors, the civilian corporate personnel, why aren't they being held accountable for their actions?
If you are a U.S. soldier and you hurt an Iraqi civilian and that becomes known, you will be court-martialed. But if you are a U.S. contractor and you kill an Iraqi civilian and that becomes known, you will be sent home. And then you can come back the following week and you can work for a different contractor.
The question is in regards to private military contractors. The Uniform Code of Military Justice does not apply to these contractors in Iraq. I asked your Secretary of Defense a couple months ago what law governs their actions. Mr.
I was going to ask him. Go ahead. Help.
Well,
I pick up the phone and say, Mr. Secretary, I got an interesting question. This is what delegation, I don't mean to be dodging the question, although it's kind of convenient in this case, but never. I really will. I'm going to call the Secretary and say, you brought up a very valid question, and what are we doing about it? That's how I work. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Are any of these allegations being investigated?
My recollection is, and I think it's okay to say this, is that the investigations are ongoing.
Yes, sir.
And that time will tell.
Somehow these contractors have leveraged power in Washington, and the government feels like they want to protect these people. They want to protect the security of these contracts, and they want to protect them from prosecution.
Top recipients of money from Halliburton, Titan, C.A.C.I, and Blackwater are the two chairmen of the committees in Congress and the House of Representatives that oversee military matters and spending.
The major corporations, these cartel and monopoly corporations, they've figured out how to legally buy influence.
I would echo the words of Pope John Paul II. Profit by itself is not a sufficient motivation for business endeavors. You're operating in the realm of greed. You're not operating in the realm of morality.
I went to Iraq and came back. What was so heartbreaking was that I found that we weren't always the good guys, and it was very disillusioning for me. Because I'd grown up with this dream of America, what America was. And when I saw that dream at Abu Ghraib and what it had become, I felt heartbroken. I felt like I didn't know what it was to be an American, because I saw what I had thought America was destroyed and disgraced.
U.S. forces here are saying openly they're braced for more terror attacks, more bombings.
We had a significant anniversary, the fall of Baghdad. We had a Christian holiday, and they converged to create what was an obvious day of danger. Halliburton and KBR had news from multiple sources, including multiple sources in the military, that the roads that day were under active combat operations and were black, closed, and or red. No civilians.
There were sitting ducks out there in military trucks on that day.
They told us we couldn't wear camouflage or anything that made us look like military. The point was clear that we were not soldiers and we were not to behave like soldiers.
He couldn't even wear a camouflage shirt on base, let alone driving a military fuel truck out in, the desert where there was a war around him.
Why would they send this convoy in camouflage trucks down that road in the middle of battle?
It's about contracts, I believe. Fulfilling a contract and replacing us if we died. There's a lot of different contracts being offered out there, and Halliburton wants most of them. If they could have them all, they would take them all. And they wanted to continue doing business with the Army, whatever the risks were.
It was nothing but the money. There's no duty, honor, country among anyone at Halliburton KBR.
In the case of Halliburton, most of the contracts they've received have been sole source contracts, which means they're either given the contract, it's just offered to them, or they're the only people that bid on it.
Clementine Greenhouse, a top contracting officer at the Army Corps of Engineers, alleges favoritism and rule breaking.
I walked into a process that was corrupt, that was geared toward preferential treatment to KBR. KBR was pre-selected. The duration of the contract was predetermined. Most blatant abuse that I had experienced in my contracting career.
Halliburton was hired to provide clean, safe cooking, cleaning, shower water for the military. One of Halliburton's employees saw something wiggling in the water in his toilet bowl. So I went and tested the water in our water storage tanks. There was no chlorine in them, none. The water we showered in every single day was extremely contaminated. And when I talk about contaminated water, I'm saying malaria, typhus, giardia, cryptosporidium. I mean, the list is really, really long.
Halliburton is accused by its own employees of exposing troops to contaminated water in Iraq.
When I tried to notify the troops that they may be exposed to a serious health risk, I was told that the military was none of my concern.
They were only concerned with making their profit and didn't care how it may affect the troops. Of the 67 water treatment plants that Halliburton run, 63 of them weren't providing safe water. And the Marines are showering in it every single day. Sorry.
It was all a scam. Halliburton was charging $45 for a six-pack can of like Coke or Pepsi that they give us and the military free in the mess hall.
Now, these sodas were made right there in the desert. It's not as if they were brought over from the United States. These sodas were made with Arabic wraps, you know, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, whatever, right there in the desert. So it's not as if they had an exorbitant transportation rate.
They had the little mobile units that we had to put our clothes in, like a net duffel bag. Halliburton charged the government $100 for every bag of clothes they washed.
Whenever we got our laundry back, it felt worse than when we turned it in. Everything was still grimy. I stopped taking my laundry into KBR, and instead, I was washing it in the sink. And I was told by my chain of command that I was not allowed to wash my laundry on my own. I had to take it to KBR to have it washed, even though we all knew that they were doing a horrible job because they get $99 a bag for a bag of laundry that I could do at home for $3.
The legal way of stealing from the government or taxpayers' money.
The Pentagon audit released last night that found the company is overcharging taxpayers.
Halliburton Company billed taxpayers for its contract work in Iraq.
It is your money that's being used. These contracts are managed under a system called Cost Plus, which is the opposite of trying to save money. It guarantees that everything that you buy will be paid back and reimbursed if it's seen as justified, and you'll be given a profit in addition.
A cost-plus arrangement that critics say leaves little incentive to save. The more taxpayer dollars Halliburton spends, the more Halliburton makes.
Cost Plus encourages you to run up the cost of a program because you are going to get a percentage of the end result. And so there's no incentive to stay at Motel 6. Stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Qatar, folks.
The place that they chose for orientation in Kuwait was a huge resort set right on the ocean. Had, I think, 3 swimming pools.
So it was better than the Wyndham in Texas or the Ritz. It was fancied up.
Marble floors, mahogany woodwork, it was just beautiful.
They had sea-doos, jet skis they could use.
You could go and rent wave runners and go out and play in the water.
We were renting wave runners, and we got paid by the hour to do it. I was told this: don't question it, enjoy it.
Several government agencies are currently investigating if Halliburton overcharged for work already completed in Iraq.
They had 5-star meals catered in every day.
It was so lavish. Rows of vegetable platters, beef platters, fish platters.
It's a cost-plus contract. KBR looked at it, the more money we spend, that's the more money we get in our pockets.
We had it made over there compared to the military. I mean, those guys were living in tents, and we had air-conditioned private hooches.
The tents that we were staying in were completely moldy, and everybody was getting sick with respiratory infections. They're getting paid millions of dollars. Why can't they even give us a tent that doesn't make us sick to live in it?
The soldiers are sleeping on these little cots out in the middle of the desert, while these KBR executives are driving these $40,000 vehicles.
They and their secretaries are driving at least a $30,000 to $40,000 vehicle. This secretary lives in this complex, eats her meals in this complex, has her laundry delivered to her, has no reason to go anywhere at any time, but has a brand new top-of-the-line Ford or Chevy pickup with everything imaginable on it that you could put on it.
Chrome rims and leather interior and CD players and all these extra amenities that, you don't really need in wartime.
Why do they need an H2 Hummer? Why do they have Cadillac Escalades in Iraq for Halliburton managers? What is the purpose?
One invoice that I saw was for about $7,000 for 1 month for a SUV on a lease. It was a 3-year contract. Comes up to roughly $250,000. A vehicle that you and I could purchase at the local dealership for probably top of the line $45,000. And the taxpayer paid $250,000 and never did own the vehicle.
They got the wrong equipment, ordered the wrong stuff, computers still in boxes, new vehicles. They'd push them out in what they called burn pits, and they just set it on fire, claim it as a loss, get more money for the right equipment or the right stuff they needed.
Why would you need to order somebody else's wrong equipment just because somebody pays you to do it, and you burn it and destroy it?
You got brand new trucks over there, and there's not even oil filters. So when the motor blows, what do? Buy a new truck and bill the government.
$75,000 truck, they wouldn't even have a spare tire to fit it, and we had to blow it up. And they didn't care Halliburton did because the government's paying for it.
We knew that every day that a vehicle broke down, we would have to destroy it. And these are maybe $80,000 vehicles, maybe $100,000. They're expensive trucks. We're burning fuel in front of Iraqi people. We're not really doing anything to help, and we just have to follow the orders.
As a truck driver in the mail department, they'd send me to these cams with 1 bag of mail. That's risking my life just to deliver 1 bag of mail.
Escort entire convoys where every flatbed truck was empty.
The allegations come from 12 truckers complaining that the company was wasting government money by running empty trucks on the convoys and billing the government for them.
It seems senseless to travel up and down the road and taking a chance of losing your life when there wasn't no purpose in it. When you went up empty and you come back empty. That's how Halliburton was making their killing, making their money. Is a legal way of stealing from the American citizen and the military.
Halliburton is accused of hundreds of millions of dollars in improper charges.
Pentagon auditors have found potential overcharges of $61 million.
Now the numbers are apparently even larger than previously thought.
Halliburton's unreasonable and unsupported bills exceed $1 billion.
If anybody's overcharging the government, we expect them to repay that money.
It's been proven so many times that Halliburton has overbilled them. and then the Pentagon still pays them anyway. I don't know who it is that is protecting Halliburton. I don't understand why the military would protect them.
If you look at their board of directors, they've got contacts in the State Department, contacts in the military. People who work for Halliburton once worked for the military.
When you hire top Pentagon officials, when the vice president is your former CEO, you're going to get the access that other people don't.
It is reportedly not a coincidence that Vice President Dick Cheney's old company got a huge contract to help rebuild Iraq. Time magazine said it has gotten a hold of a Pentagon email saying Cheney's office coordinated Halliburton's multi-billion-dollar deal.
If anybody believes that the contracts handed to Halliburton for Iraq weren't, the moral equivalent of insider trading, man, I've got an ocean in the middle of Kansas I'd like to take you surfing on. It's just phenomenal. I mean, of course they were insider deals. Of course it was payback for old friends and political supporters and campaign contributors.
They're very strategic in how they allocate their political contributions. You'll see most of their money going to the committees that oversee military matters and funding for it.
Halliburton's stock has quadrupled in value since the war began, and taxpayers are being ripped off.
The people in charge say we want to give to contractors because they can do it cheaper. Well, lo and behold, the evidence is now coming in and it isn't cheaper, and we're not actually getting what we're paying for.
My amendment would stop them.
There hasn't been a single major piece of contracting oversight legislation passed by the Congress since the war began. Not even a significant amendment has been passed, despite all the enormous amounts of fraud and waste and abuse.
There needs to be a special committee established, a bipartisan committee, to take a look at waste and fraud and abuse.
The amendment is not agreed to.
The amendment is not adopted.
And the Leahy amendment is not agreed to.